All right, Mina, whenever you're ready.
Okay, admitting and recording now.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We want to welcome all of our students who are joining us, as well as our guests, and want to extend a warm welcome to our 4 panelists that are joining us here. And we're going to hear a little bit about them in just a few moments. We wanted to make sure that we give proper recognition to the Mount and to the Department of Business and Tourism. And we want to welcome everybody officially as we begin our panel here this afternoon on human resource management and management. So welcome everybody. Let's get right to it, if you will. And I wanted to sort of treat this as a discussion. So I'll pick on Anna first. Anna, can you briefly describe your organization, the work that you do, your position, so we get a little bit of a sense as to your background?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Anna Marenick. I am the Senior Director of People and Governance with Develop Nova Scotia. Develop Nova Scotia is a Crown corporation within the provincial government. So we're not quite a department. We report through the Department of Business in the province, but we have a separate board. And our mandate is focused on something called placemaking, which is about building places with people in order to help attract people to live in Nova Scotia, to visit Nova Scotia, set up businesses here, and belong and be connected to community. We were the Waterfront Development Corporation. So for those of you who've been on the Halifax Boardwalk, over time, so those are properties that we own and manage. We've turned the boardwalk from a series of brownfield sites with a bunch of parking lots into the most visited tourism destination, pandemic obviously aside, in Nova Scotia. We believe that if we build places for locals first, that will help attract people to live here, visit, start businesses and grow businesses. And we're also really focused on making sure that as our community diversifies, that we're building spaces that are inclusive and reflective of all of Nova Scotians. So that's a bit about the organization, and I'm sure as the panel progresses, I'll have more time to tell you a little bit more about my role within the organization.
Excellent, thank you, Anna. Welcome to the panel. Let's talk to Nick. Nick, why don't you introduce yourself and describe the organization that you represent and the position that you hold and some of your professional background, please.
Okay, so Anna gets 1 question and I get 6. Awesome. So actually it's funny, Anna, I had no idea that our organizations have a sort of similar mission, you know, just minus we don't have a boardwalk. But, you know, it's very much about improving the business sort of world in Nova Scotia. So it's through, I think the difference is ours is through the HR profession. So, so I work at CPHR Nova Scotia. And essentially, what we do, our greatest mission is just to connect HR professionals in Nova Scotia for their benefit, to improve their workplaces, them as individuals. But of course, we are probably most famous for being the exclusive governing body in Nova Scotia of the nationally recognized Chartered Professional and Human Resources designation, which is the leading standard for HR professionals in Canada. So that's a bit about the association. So I am an HR professional. I've got 15 plus years of experience through, retail organizations, marketing. I did a stint in insurance, and now I'm in a non-for-profit world where I'm still very much involved and surrounded by HR, but I'm not doing pure HR work. But that's sort of a migration of my career anyways. In the last role I was in, I was spending more time in corporate services, managing all of the support functions like IT, facilities, HR, payroll, and so on. But similar to Anna, sort of our mission is to make Nova Scotia the workplace of choice.
That is excellent, Nick. That was very thorough as well for my compounded questions. So thank you. Thank you, and welcome to our panel here this afternoon. Kevin, same question to you. Could you describe the organization, the type of work that you do and that you represent, and some of your professional background?
Okay, thanks, Nick. Well, I'm a professional management consultant, a certified management consultant, actually a fellow of the Institute in Canada. One of my key roles, one of the key areas of expertise that I deliver on is HR performance management. But I also am involved in organizational excellence, innovation and productivity improvement, strategic planning and change implementation, training and facilitation services, and one of the areas that I'm doing a lot of work in right now is coaching and mentoring. So I've been an independent management consultant for almost 35 years. And interestingly, crossed paths with Nick's organization many years ago when it was the Human Resource Association of Nova Scotia. Also worked for the CPHR, if you remember that far back, Nick, and actually developed the competencies, capabilities network for the CHRP in Canada back around the turn of the millennium. So
we're just in the process of updating, actually. We're doing a significant overhaul. Yeah, the competency framework.
Yeah, no, it's...
you probably worked with Wendy Carroll on that. I think she was involved too.
No, it was before Wendy was involved.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it was a while ago.
You're dating yourself, Kevin.
It's true. Well, I've been around for a long time. Anyway, I think that's probably enough for now.
I love this. This is classic Halifax in our business community, being a tightly knit community and never knowing where you will meet somebody from a past life. So that. Last but not least, Alex. Alex, talk to us a bit about your organization, the work that you work for, and the position that you hold.
Yeah, for sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Alex Canam. I am currently working at Universal Truck and Trailer in Dieppe, Nova Scotia. See, I'm from Nova Scotia, so I always say that in New Brunswick. So Universal Truck and Trailer, what we do is we are a dealership and repair shop for long haul trucks, and we are in the transportation and logistics division of Irving Limited. So what my current role here is that I'm the health and safety coordinator. So all of the things you would have learned in any of your health and safety classes in regards to safety orientations, incidents reports, all sorts of training and development initiatives going on there. I did just start this job the beginning of October, so I'm still learning along the way, but it's been great so far. So hopefully I can add some helpful hints and tips here along the way. I definitely do not have the amount of experience as my other panelists, but definitely be a little bit of a different perspective. So yeah, it'll be a great time today.
No, this is great. Thank you, Alex, and welcome. Thank you for taking part of the panel. And I think this really rounds out hopefully the type of discussion and interaction that we can engage our students in. We have a cross-section of industry professionals that have years of experience and who are new into their careers. So that will really blend well. So thank you, Alex. Nick, I'm going to turn it over to you. And the question that I have is, so you are a Chief Executive Officer at the HR Society or Association here in Nova Scotia. What are the key responsibilities that entail your role? Talk to us about what your job looks like.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's funny. This is when I feel the least like the true HR professional that I am in my core. because I'm doing so many things that are not typical of an HR professional, but things that I do enjoy. So, starting at the top, the most important, I think, is member engagement. We have 850 members across the province. The bulk of, as you can imagine, it lines up with our population, which means that the bulk of them are in Halifax, but we certainly have quite a few out in Cape Breton and South Shore, East Shore, etc. So engaging with them, and I think one of the challenges around that is, of course, we're not their number one priority. They've got a job to do. They've got a family to take care of. So we fight for that third place. I'm not sure what else is in competition for third place, but that's it's a big challenge trying to get member engagement, get them involved, and giving them things that they desire and see an ROI on with their association dues. Governance is a big part of my job. I do report to a board. We've got many bylaws and policies and processes and national standards. The Nova Scotia Association isn't on its own. There's an association in every single province. We all work collaboratively on similar goals, and so we do have some level of consistency and governance around that. I spend a great deal of time on the financial part of our business. It's a bit of an exciting role, I think, because it sort of feels like I'm a small business owner. There's lots of tax involvement and risk assessment and keeping the books in tip-top shape, etc. And these are things that normally HR professionals don't get to do. Someone's taking care of the finances. You usually have a budget you're allocated, and you don't have to worry about whether you're going to show up tomorrow and the power's turned off. So those are things I have to worry about as the CEO here. Operations and people management, we do have a team here, and operationally the board has tasked me with, they're great at staying in the strategic, and they give me full autonomy and flexibility to manage the operations. I spend a lot of time in marketing and stakeholder engagement. And then lastly, a big one is our designation and all the programs that we offer. So those are essentially the 6 key responsibilities that I take care of as CEO.
Excellent, thank you. It's quite the portfolio of things you're doing, but you're doing a great job. And we'll talk more about a potential relationship that our school may have with your association, hopefully at the end. So we'll put a plug in for that. Kevin, you have a wealth of experience in different functions of management. Talk to us about some of the key responsibilities that you see being important in your role as a management consultant.
Well, it's interesting listening to what Nick just said, because it's very similar to being a small business owner. If you're an independent management consultant, you're involved with everything. You set the strategic direction for where your organization's going. You're responsible for marketing and sales, IT management, running your own shop. You're your own IT manager. You determine which, your storage process, your CRM, everything to do with IT, finance and bookkeeping. I bill my clients. I look after most of my own finances. Production operations specialist, getting things done, setting up your home office, and of course making all your travel arrangements for. I do a lot of my work, or did before the pandemic, was nationally and internationally. And human resources. All of the work that I do, even though I'm an independent consultant, depends on developing a response to clients' requirements, which includes partnerships with various other management consultants who have expertises different than mine. So when you're running your own management consulting, whether it be a single person shop or a small to medium-sized consulting practice with a number of people working with you, you basically run the entire organization and are responsible for all of those different areas. Now, as the organizations and consulting get bigger, then you have specialists. So.
Excellent, thank you. Alex, same question. You're new to your career, but you've already got your hands involved in some varying aspects of human resource management, especially with your time here in Nova Scotia and now your new position in New Brunswick. So How would you describe the key responsibilities that you exhibit or that you are responsible for in your organization? You can use your past where that was more recent, or in your current organization.
Yeah, for sure. So I did recently graduate actually in May. So yeah, I'm very early into my career, but I had the pleasure of working actually at Northwood Long-Term Care Facility this summer as a junior HR advisor. So in the peak of the pandemic and COVID-19, that was definitely a challenge for sure. So that was a lot of recruiting for our pandemic relief team due to the fact that we had so many staff out sick or not able to work due to childcare and other responsibilities. So for that, yeah, it was definitely just all of interviewing, screening, stuff like that, all of our new hire paperwork to get them in, and then just keeping up with them to make sure that they're settling in well. So that was definitely a very interesting experience, as it being extremely involving COVID. And then now that I've moved to New Brunswick in my health and safety role, a lot of my responsibilities are organizing our joint occupational health and safety committee and running those meetings. And then also any of our auditing that we would do to make sure that we're in compliance with WorkSafe New Brunswick. I also do any of our incident investigations and a bunch of interesting training seminars that we do in regards to safety, and actually the transportation logistics division as a whole, we're rolling out a new health and safety program, which is going to be Safe Choice, which is a training initiative that hopefully will be able to get our journey to zero, as we like to call it here at Irving, which is just trying to get down to zero injuries across the board. So this program is going to be introduced to hopefully help with those, the human element of it, rather than the obvious health and safety of, oh, you could trip over that, or anything with our equipment. This is all about how people make their decisions and their behavior around safety. So that's kind of where I have fallen, and yeah, it's been interesting, and I'm learning every single day. I've, again, only been here 4 weeks, so every day is a new challenge, but I think that's what I like about it the most with HR, is that you do have those opportunities to get into industries that you never thought you'd be, and then it becomes a really, huge part of your life. So I will excuse any noises. Our shop is actually just down the hall for me, so if you hear any welding equipment or horns and stuff like that, that's where I'm at. So excuse any of that noise. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of what I do here.
I love that last comment, because that encapsulates the work of an HR professional, right? You're involved in just about everything. Yep. And yeah, so that's great. Thank you, Alex, for that. A lot of responsibilities there. I want to pass this over to Anna. If you can you talk to us about the key responsibilities that are expected of you and that's involved in your position and the high profile job that you currently have?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different hats that I wear in my role. So I technically own all aspects of the people life cycle. So if you think about the work of a kind of a traditional HR person, I would have, in my portfolio, I would have all of those things. So recruitment, talent management, performance management, compensation, professional development, succession planning, policy development, termination, that the whole scope, other than working with we don't have unionized employees, but basically all of the HR processes that you I assume would have learned through your courses or will learn would fall to me to enable and set the conditions to do that. I also play a role in being a trusted advisor to, our entire organization, from giving, direct advice to the CEO, to meeting with someone more junior in their career looking for some advice and guidance. I tend to play that role a little bit. I have responsibility for the execution of everything related to board governance, which is significant. The role of the board and boards in general is certainly increasing now, and the preparation that goes into getting boards ready to do the work that they need to do at the right level is pretty critical. So when we're preparing for a board meeting, just for context, I start planning five weeks ahead. So I'm always thinking in future terms as it relates to board management. I also have responsibility for the execution of our strategy through our staff. So we talk all the time about wanting to have a living strategy within our organization. And what does that really mean? So how are we building an internal communications and engagement program that's going to make sure that every employee that we have sees themselves in the strategy that we've created, is excited about it, and feels that passion, even if it's not there's a specific project that doesn't directly impact their day-to-day work. And the last piece that is pretty critical in my portfolio is diversity and inclusion. So I would have responsibility to make sure that I'm looking at diversity and inclusion as a lens inside the organization, but also outside the organization. How are we making sure that we are building spaces and relationships so that all people in Nova Scotia can see themselves in what we build, and then conversely in the organization that we have.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna, for that. I want to talk now. So now we've introduced everybody and we're familiar now with the types of involvement that we have in the career of management in HR. Want to get a little bit talking about challenges. So one of the things that students often find is that we hear a lot of the wonderful things that this profession may have, right? So flexibility, autonomy, responsibility over people, leadership, power. But let's talk about some challenges. And I'm going to start the conversation off with Kevin. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your job?
Finding enough hours in the day when I'm busy. As an independent, there's only you, or unless you hire other people to work with you. And so when you're busy producing a project, for a client, or you're traveling overseas and things have to be looked after in the office back home, it's pretty much the ability to integrate life and work. And of course, we all live outside of our jobs. I'm a volunteer. I sit on board for arts organizations. I race sailboats. I play basketball. There's fitting in all of these other aspects of your life. And so I've sort of developed the challenge is the balance of work-life integration. So when I'm dealing with clients in India, it's 12 hours difference, or 20 hours difference dealing with people in the Far East. So you figuring out how to get that all done on top of when you're busy, that's the biggest challenge.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And that actually rings true to a number of our students here as well, trying to find work-life balance and being able to correctly project what time commitment would be involved in a particular project or an assignment or in our co-op work placements, so on and so forth. So that's excellent. Thank you for that realistic challenge that you face. Alex, I'm going to pass it over to you. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your job, and perhaps, or something that you have experienced to be the most challenging in your career so far?
Right. So what I think in my profession, especially now, that I find most challenging, just like HR, it all kind of in health and safety, people hear that title and kind of look back and are a little weary of HR safety people being around, because sometimes there's that negative stereotype of, that they might get in trouble, or that, you're just trying to get all these rules, and nobody likes the HR and health and safety people. So that's definitely a hurdle that you need to kind of really try to combat. So especially with here, if I'm ever walking down on the shop or anything like that, there's definitely people that kind of are weary that I'm walking around because they think I'm auditing or doing something like that. So which most of the time I am. But again, it's just being able to connect with whatever organization you're working with and the staff there, and just bring it down to their level of them understanding what your role is. And in my situation with health and safety, like my main purpose is that everyone gets home safe and has and is safe and able to do those things that you like to do outside of work. And that's what's most important. We're not here trying to write people up and trying to be sticklers to rules. Like, the rules are there for a reason, and it's for their well-being and to keep them safe so that they can go home every day and spend time with their family, or like Kevin said, maybe sailing or basketball, stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's definitely with HR and health and safety, it's definitely the stigma of it. And a way I've found to break that down is that you just have to try and get down to that employee level and, you know, get to know everyone. And that's helped so far for me, at least.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex, for that. Anna, I'm going to pass it over to you. The most challenging aspect of your role as a manager.
So I would say as an HR manager, and I've had this conversation a lot with students who say, I want to go into HR to help people. Great. I will say often you don't always see the best in people when they come into your office from a pure HR perspective. And sometimes that can be really hard. People will surprise you sometimes, not always positively. And you do sometimes have to deal with some really sticky stuff. And it can be disheartening sometimes because, you know, the things that are happening that are really good don't always bubble up to your door. I would also say that sometimes there's I was talking about this this morning with my CEO. Sometimes people feel that if there's an HR person in place, then all responsibility for people management, good coaching resides with HR. I don't own culture in my organization. I enable the right program, system, structures so that managers can own it. That's what's important. So, you know, when someone calls me and says, my employee's done something bad, can you have a conversation with them? No, I need to help you have a conversation with them. So that's kind of an ongoing topic of conversation. I'd say communication is always really important, that you can never over communicate. You can't assume that people know more than they do. But the flip side of that is that there's a lot of information that I hold in the organization that I need to keep very confidential. And there are things that may happen that, you know, that may look like they're coming totally out of the blue for staff, because there's certain things that I'm not able to share. So trying to figure out how we can balance that confidentiality versus that need for transparency is always, it's a really tricky needle to thread, but it's an important one to thread. The last thing I'd say too, that's probably a bit appropriate to a time like this is, I haven't yet found, and I've asked, what the pandemic HR manual looks like. There's a lot of stuff that we're having to retool and rejig as we go. So it's a really, it's an interesting time from a policy perspective and a culture perspective to be trying to, you know, look at HR management and how you set conditions for people to feel safe. I think it's really complex right now. So there's a lot of complexities that I think, you know, I wouldn't say are overly unique to the role that I serve. I think they're fairly common. I mean, Nick might be able to speak to this more than me, but I think some of these are pretty common cross industry.
That's great. Thank you. I wanted to take this moment to welcome another panelist that has joined us, April Howe. We want to welcome you and thank you for taking part of our HR and management panel here today. So to get caught up, I'm going to ask you two questions. Number one, I'm going to ask you if you could briefly sort of situate yourself. So the organization that you represent, the position that you hold, and then continuing on this question, what you find to be the most challenging aspect of your job. And that question would go to April.
Thanks so much, Becky.
Perfect.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. I just wanted to first apologize for arriving late. I had a bit of a family emergency, and so I had to take care of that. So I really apologize for being late. I'll be quick about my sort of introduction. My name is April Howe. I am Executive Director of People and Culture with the Public Service Commission of Nova Scotia. And my role has sort of 4 key files in my portfolio. So diversity and inclusion for the province, and all of my work is corporate inclusion, internal communications, recruitment services, learning and development, and I also have a learning center that is run out of my shop as well. So going quickly to the question that everybody has so eloquently addressed, the hardest part of my job as an HR manager, I would say, and I do want to pick up a little bit on what Anna Marenick just shared, around navigating people and the information that you must hold confidentially, and trying to guide the organization the best way that you can. And so there's an intersectionality of all of those pieces, because as an HR leader, you usually house in your brain a lot of highly confidential information, but you also have a lot of the same people asking for your advice. And so being able to remain unbiased in your head and in the advice that you give, even though you know certain information, sometimes can cause a bit of a moral conflict in your brain. And so I would suggest that we've all dealt with that by time in our roles, but it's one of the things that I still, on not daily, but frequently enough, have to sort of manage.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And again, welcome to the panel, April. We're happy to have you. To round up this question in this conversation, I'm loving the depth that we're getting here in a cross-section of responses. Let's turn it over to Nick. Nick, tell me, what's the most challenging aspect of your role, or perhaps from your professional experience, what has been the most challenging aspect?
Yeah, I think I'll take the second of those 2 options. I think my role is a bit unique and maybe not as helpful. So I'll talk about the industry. What I think is one of the most challenging aspects of being an HR professional is this. It almost seems unfair how many hats we have to wear. You know, I look at IT professionals, I look at, accounting professionals, and oh my goodness, most of them, I mean, not all, but most of them can predict for the most part, what their day will look like and what's going to come at them. Whereas an HR professional, as one example, we expect to be, the psychologists in the organization, and we're not trained as psychologists. We might be better dealing with those interpersonal conflicts and people situations. But you play out a psychologist situation. Someone might call and they'll have an appointment, and they might be dealing with some mental health issues. The psychologist has some advance warning. Its schedule is, and they know what they're walking into. An HR professional could be just celebrating that they've finally filled a recruit, right? You've got this vacancy and you're celebrating, you're excited, and then someone knocks on your door. Hey, do you have a second? They shut the door and then they sit down and they go, whoop, I'm considering suicide. Like, oh my God, okay. Let me change my hats. And I went from being a recruiter to being a psychologist. And, and there's so many examples of that. I mean, even I know very, very senior leaders, I think one of the things that they find most helpful from an HR professional is to call them out on their BS. That they're the one person in the room that can say, the way you spoke to the director of marketing, you're pretty rude. And that's a role that, that counseling role. There's another hat. It's counselor, it's recruiter, it's psychologist, it's Alex is playing that health and safety role. I mean, there's an argument, someone's having there's an injury in the workplace. Oh my God, we need first aid. Okay, it's got to be the HR department, right? They know how to deal with first aid. Yeah, of course. We're paramedics too while we're at it. I just think there's so many expectations on us, and to be able to be so well-rounded when it comes to the people side, I think that's easily one of the most challenging aspects of the profession that you just don't see in other professions, in my experience anyways.
That was a really good summative answer, because it brings together a common theme that I'm getting from these responses, and that would be working with people, a lot of the work is undone. You know, you can't simply just check off something on a list and then not have to deal with it again. And knowing that it's very fluid in some sense. So that was a really good response from everybody. So thank you for that. We've talked about challenges now, so let's talk about things that you enjoy most about your job. So Alex, if I could ask you, what do you enjoy most about your job? And since you're just starting, perhaps the profession, what's the one thing that you enjoy most about it?
Right. So the thing I enjoy most about my job, right now especially, is that every day is different. And Nick touched on that kind of with HR. It's always funny, especially in interviews, people ask a lot of the time, oh, well, what can I expect my day-to-day to look like? And in HR, you don't know. It's ever changing. Things pop up here and there, and it's constantly evolving. But that's also the beauty in it as well, is that you don't have a lot of time to be bored, because you're always working on something else or a new challenge comes across your desk. So that's definitely what I enjoy most about it. And now that I've moved into the transportation industry, just in regards to HR, yeah, you get into so many different industries that you never thought you'd be in. So for that, with transportation, I love being down actually on the shop. Like, it was interesting, actually. I was just doing a walk around on the shop floor, and one of our technicians was like, hey, do you want to check out this, and do an MVI for one of our trucks? So, I went along with them and helped do all of their safety inspections and check like that. So it's just stuff you would never think that you'd learn, and you're just constantly a sponge, just learning new things all the time. So I think that's what I'm enjoying most about the industry that I'm in now. Yes, I'm in health and safety and HR, but sometimes I'm down the shop floor and somebody will be showing me how to, change a gasket on an engine or something like that. So it's definitely constantly changing, and you're always learning new things. So that's definitely what I enjoy about my job the most.
That's excellent. Thank you, Alex. And who would have thought in HR you're changing gaskets and you're taking vehicles for motor vehicle inspections? It's so unique, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So we have an early career. Let's switch to Anna. Anna, you've held several key management positions over the years, and you've worn many hats. So I'm sure you have a number of things that you could say that you have enjoyed about a particular position, but is there one thing that you could say that you enjoy most about your job or the profession of HR and management in general?
What a career focused on people has allowed me to do is continue to learn, which is critical. And I want to separate learning from education. I believe that education makes you educated. It doesn't make you smart. And continued opportunities to learn need to transcend past everything that you do. And working with people, it's just table stakes. If you're not willing to learn new ways of doing things, you won't be successful in your job. To that end, so I love that I can learn new policies or ways of doing things, or it's just a bottomless opportunity to learn. But the other thing that I think working with people has always allowed me to do is be really, really curious. And I certainly saw this when I was in consulting, and Kevin would know this too. The same problem presented in a different organization is not the same problem at all, because the people are different, the institutional context is different, the history, the culture, then the norms and the ways that people operate. So I would say continuous learning and curiosity would be the things that I enjoy most about doing people work, and have been a consistent for me, kind of a non-negotiable as I have navigated different jobs in different industries. If I don't have both of those things, I don't feel personally satisfied. But they're both pretty important, I think, to being in HR and working with people.
Anna, that was fantastic. And I really enjoyed the comment you made about education versus learning. And there is a bit of a disparity, if you will, or the assumption that they are the same. Thank you for that. April, I want to ask you the same question. What do you enjoy most about your job or the profession overall?
Well, I've got two quick responses to that. So what I enjoy about the profession overall is there are so many disciplines within the field of human resources. You know, you've got Alex that is in health and safety. You know, I'm in the field of leadership and sort of internal consulting. You know, Anna is in the same sort of field. Like there's so many disciplines don't necessarily know or appreciate that. Strategically, do we really need to be focused on? So for me, I love that. And as I've come along in my career, you know, incrementally, I've had more and more opportunity to have those types of impacts on an organization. It just so happens that this organization is interested in the running of the province. And so, so I love having a say that I can see, if that makes sense.
That's excellent. Thank you for that, April. Nick, let me pass this over to you. Talked about things that you found perhaps challenging, but let's talk about things that perhaps you enjoy most about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these passions are so important, and being able to, you know, pinpoint what is your passion and what do you enjoy. I think Anna said it perfectly. These are some of the non-negotiables, so it's wise to figure that out early in your career. I'll start first with a bit of a negative aspect with HR. So, and actually, I think Anna kind of alluded to this. HR attracts the I like people, right? But I have found in my career, and I'm not alone, it can actually be one of the loneliest careers. You know, you're in this unique spot where people will bring you very private information. You know, sometimes you're seen as the fun police. So you're not always invited to those barbecues or go out for a drink. You know, it's okay for them to get drunk in front of colleagues, but HR professionals are held to a higher standard. You know, so you're sometimes kind of an outsider. You know too much, and you're held to a different standard. So with that in mind, what I find to be my passion is the community. It's trying to find that community. So I was volunteering with, it was Franz back in the day, and now we're CPHR Nova Scotia. I've been volunteering in many different capacities, similar to Kevin, on national committees and provincial committees. And that sense of community and bringing other HR professionals together and figuring out that I don't have to reinvent the wheels. You know, Alex has already figured out this health and safety issue, so she's going to lend me her knowledge, and being able to connect in that way, and knowing I'm not crazy. The things I'm dealing with, you know, where I've got a staff member that comes into my office, shuts the door, takes his shirt off and says, "Does that mole look strange to you?" I'm like, that's not a normal interaction, but that actually happened to me. And I'm not the only one. I can connect with HR professionals that go, yeah, these weird things happen to me all the time. It's just, there's something about it. So for me, it's a community. And so I volunteered with the association, and now I'm doing it full time. You know, so my full-time job is to connect HR professionals, and that is my passion. That's what I love about my job. And I've always enjoyed in my career. And that, you know, that in that community thing, it's more than just that. It's the belongingness. It can open up career opportunities. It's that professional network. You know, there's so many benefits to it, and especially these days with the pandemic going on. Oh my goodness, it's more impactful than ever now to have that strong sense of community.
Wow, what an insightful comment you made about HR simply being perhaps the glue sometimes in the organization, and sort of being the catch-all, if you will, from moles to other things.
Kid you not, true story.
Yeah,
put your shirt back on.
I'm not even going to ask. I won't even ask the story. Kevin, help us before this gets away. What do you enjoy most about your job or the profession in general?
Well, I'm at a point in my career where I've done most of my work nationally and internationally. So what I'm not enjoying right now is being grounded. When COVID hit, I just finished a 2.5 week project in New Zealand, working with the federal government there on their procurement of professional services. I was about to go to Dubai, where I've worked with both the UAE government and the individual Emirati governments of Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the evaluation of their civil service and HR departments right across the civil service, which is, so what I love about my job is the travel, meeting new people, the challenges of the work, and of course, the flexibility of owning my own company allows me to be able to manage and fit in the other aspects of my life that I enjoy. But absolutely the things that Nick talked about and Anna talked about and April talked about are working with people is interesting and challenging. A friend of mine in the business said, do I look like a people person? I don't really like people, but I like working with them. So I like people as well as working with them.
Wow, that was so insightful. That actually reminds me of a philosopher that once said that hell is people, but so is heaven, and not in some literal sense, but enjoyment versus perhaps not having so much fun. So thank you for that, Kevin. And let's keep our fingers crossed that at some point soon that we'll be able to do some traveling when it is safe. Love for you to get back on the road. Anna, we're going to switch this back, and here's the next question. What factors or events in your life have enabled you to achieve success in your career? So it's story time.
So I'll tell you some things that I think have been helpful for me. I have what I call a personal board of directors, and they are a group of people who I trust for advice and guidance. It's not just one person, I have many, and each of the people that I rely on serve different functions, and that may change over time. But I need the people, I have people who, when I'm feeling unsure, they're the people who can stretch me, the people who, are my cheerleaders, the people who are consistent or provide a certain skill set. So I've been really lucky that I've had a great group of mentors that have helped me continue to shape who I am as a professional. And to that point, I think networking really matters. And I feel like it's something that I've put a lot of focus in. And someone told me once, networking is not about who you know, it's who knows you. So that when someone goes, I know who you should talk to about this opportunity, you should talk to Anna, and I'm going to make that introduction. That is kind of built into the fabric of how business communities work in small cities and in large. So I feel like I've been able to do that effectively. And I think too that there are jobs that I had that I really did not feel suited me, but it's amazing as my career has progressed how that experience has still really helped shape how I've shown up and how I've gotten better. So this experience that I thought looked really, out of left field, and I was never going to come back to that again, it's found a way to kind of integrate into the career that I have. And I haven't settled, right? If I have constantly been trying to find the right place and the right environment for me to do my best work. I'm not wired to have one job for 25 years and do it until I retire. So I've always kind of tried to, position myself for future success. I'd say too, though, the last thing is I'm also very aware that my ability to do those things has come with a large helping of privilege. That, on virtue of the fact that I'm, I have education, I'm from here, I can play the who's your father game with the best of them. And now that I've recognized that, and I have had, some success, I suppose, I owe it to the people who are not in the room to be a good ally for those who aren't. It's not just enough now for me to look at what success is for me. I have to use my voice, not just to self-advocate now. So I'm much more aware of that. And it also, I think, Nick, has helped me define success differently. It is less about me and the role that I play and the title that I hold. So now at this stage, I'm redefining what success looks like, and I'm in a different place in that journey, I'd say.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that, Anna. And that certainly follows a career progression that you have followed, and it's been admirable to follow and to network. So that's one of the reasons why we're connected is through a network as well. So that's pretty cool and it's powerful. April, I'm going to connect or send this over to you. April's also part of my personal network, so there's the power of that. What factors or events in your life have enabled you to achieve some success, however you want to define that, in your career?
Well, so first of all, I feel that I need to be transparent with all of you. And so first of all, can you hear me okay? Much better?
Yes, we can. This is great.
You may have noticed that I've changed locales so that people could hear me. So in full transparency, Anna Marenick and I are best friends. And I would say, if I think about my career and Anna's career, which we both would have been friends pretty much at the beginning of both of our careers, I would say that having a mentor and a friend that gets the challenges that even women have in coming up in career, in business, in HR, breaking the glass ceiling, smashing the glass ceiling. It's helpful to have a partner in that. It's helpful to have someone that understands some of those challenges. And so we've been each other's mentors for many, many years. I would say for anyone listening, find yourself a mentor. It is critically important. I would also say that an important piece for me, being born and raised in Nova Scotia, having lived through and continue to live with the inequities that exist in Nova Scotia for people of color, for those who are Indigenous descent, African Nova Scotian descent, that is a very obvious barrier, and it was a very obvious barrier for me. And so at one point, I finally realized, because I had a really great boss when I worked at KBRS, who really gave me the ability to understand that I'm really good enough exactly the way I am, and that I don't need to be someone else to be successful. I don't need to put on someone else's persona to be successful, and that I am perfectly fine the way that I am. And that was a TSN turning point for me. And this would have been an individual that was pretty, had a pretty tough exterior, but was very cognizant of their own failings, their own, the things that we all deal with in terms of our own self-worth and our own self sort of, how we see ourselves. And so being told that it was okay to fail and meaning it, and being told every time I made a mistake that that's fine, you made the mistake and now you've learned, and being told that I am enough, no matter my background or the color of my skin or my sexual orientation, that was a TSN turning point for me. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I really wanted to share that, Nick. And I thank you for the question. I think, and I'm sure all of us have a different story, but that's mine.
No, that was absolutely perfect, April. And this is a theme that's actually come up in a number of other Career Week panels for different business disciplines that I've been a part of. The topic of mentorship, the topic of networking, and you have certainly made an impact, and I followed that somewhat at a bit of a distance, but recently you delivered a workshop for the Pharmacy Association Nova Scotia, of which my wife is part of that, and it completely changed her worldview around topics of integration, diversity, inclusion, accessibility. And so that just goes to show the power of networking. And so that was a powerful, it was powerful for her. It opened up her eyes. And so this just goes to show not only how tightly and closely knit our business community is in the city, but also how powerful of an example network is.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Nick. I
Perfect.
appreciate that.
No, thank you. She enjoyed it. So that's, thank you. Okay, Nick, talk to us about an event or a factor that occurred in your life that enabled you to achieve success, however you wanted to define that in your career.
Sure, yeah. I'll share a quick little story. I always find they're a bit more memorable. I was mid-level career, so I had a decent amount of confidence, and I remember we had a recruitment issue. Our recruitment strategy was not achieving enough success from my client's perspective, and oh my goodness, we tried a whole bunch of different angles trying to find success, and there was points where we thought it was good enough, and our client kept pushing back, and then eventually they started to get into our weeds. They're not recruitment specialists. We have all this recruitment experience, the team and I, and they got into the weeds. And at first I was very defensive. I was like, get out of here. How many years of recruitment education do you have, or experience do you have? And they're giving us these ideas, and my first instinct was like, no, I'm not listening to anything you're saying. And eventually I realized it wasn't going away, and I just had to be open-minded and give their thoughts and ideas, give it a try, or at least brainstorm with them and maybe finesse their ideas. And long story short, actually some of their ideas were fantastic, and we incorporated them, and I'm kicking myself afterwards going, what the heck was I doing? And I think the lesson that I learned there, and this is something that I've embraced for the rest of my career ever since then, is I shouldn't assume I'm the smartest person in the room. I need to assume that there's other great ideas around me and very intelligent people around me, and maybe in some of our competitors might be doing something very clever. And does that mean you exactly rip off what they're doing letter for letter? No, of course you need to take it and resize it, reshape it, and make it your own. But geez, I look back now and I go, geez, I thought I was a smart guy, but a lot of my best ideas came from other people's ideas. I took their idea and I tweaked it to my own. And so I attribute a lot of my success to the very smart people around me. And the same thing goes for leadership too. You have to assume, oh my goodness, there's nothing worse than micromanaging someone. Like, you have to assume that the people around you are capable and smart enough, and all you need to do is stay out of their way. If there's a brick wall in front of them, smash through it for them, like help them smash through it. But once that barrier's gone, get out of the way, let them do their thing. And so really, I think my biggest successes come from recognizing that there are smarter people than me all around, me, be it the competitor, a colleague, a direct report, my boss, etc.
Excellent, Nick. And this, I have to share this. This is a leadership proverb I was told quite a few years ago, that if you happen to find yourself in a room where you're the smartest person, that you probably are in the wrong room. That growth comes from being in rooms where that people who are smarter than you or can share something or pour out into you. That's the room that I want to be in. And that reminded me of that. So thank you for that. That's very timely. Kevin, factors or events in your life that have enabled you to achieve success, however you want to quantify that, in your career?
Well, I think I'm going to pick up on what everybody's mentioned, networking, developing networks, maintaining, building, relationships. You know, a lot of the work that I get is from referrals, and that's just from a long history of maintaining relationships with people over the years, keeping in touch with them, and then when they think of something, they go, "Oh yeah, maybe we should recommend Kevin can do that." And you know, the other thing that Nick just said is learning from the other smart people in the room, and I think that the ability to continue developing your skills over time, keeping on the leading edge or bleeding edge of the profession and what's happening in my profession has allowed me to be successful over time. And one of the things that I do on the side is teach in the MBA program at St. Mary's University. And that is always challenging me. The students in that program are always challenging me to be better, to learn more, to keep 2 steps or 1 step ahead of them before the next class takes place, update my research, and also they're bringing me research through the projects that they do. The writing projects and the presentation projects are finding new sources, new information right on the leading edge, and that's what helps keep me at the top of my game.
Again, this is awesome because we're bringing together themes that have been raised in other panels, and that's very practical for students about being our best through networking and through mentoring. So that's great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Kevin. Alex, you'll round up this question, and then we'll move into our last question for this afternoon. But can you share with us an event in your life, a story perhaps that you feel has enabled you to achieve success so far in your career?
Yeah, so I've definitely have been on the student side of this, watching, other panels and stuff like that, and hearing the amazing stories like that Kevin or Anna have mentioned, and you're kind of sitting there and you're like, yeah, I want to do that, but how do I do that? Like, because it's hard when you see people who are in, I guess the prime of their career, and you just starting out from university. It's extremely, extremely daunting for sure. But a lot of great points were already raised, like April was saying, to just be yourself. Organizations are looking for those new ideas or looking for those different perspectives. So definitely don't try and fake it and be someone you're not, because I think being yourself gives so much more opportunity and benefits to the organization than you seem to think. Also, I'd say just being open to experiences. As I just graduated from St. Mary's, when this job kind of presented itself to me, I was like, health and safety. I took a class in that, wasn't that great, and I didn't really think much of it, and it's just and then once I looked into it, I was like, wow, this is really something that I can add to my portfolio and make me more of a better, well-rounded professional. And I think that's a really big goal, is to be that well-rounded person, that you have different experiences in all these different places that at the time are like, is this really going to get me to where I want to be? But you'll probably find it interesting how it does. And then, yeah, exactly, with all the networks and connections, that's definitely a big one. Pretty much how I ended up at this panel today is that Nick, who used to be my prof for business ethics, just messaged me on LinkedIn. He was saying, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And I was like, oh, amazing. Like, I have no clue what kind of information I'll be able to be very helpful with all you guys, because I'm pretty much the same age as everyone listening to this panel today, but you just never know where those opportunities are going to come from. So just, making good first impressions, keeping those connections. I can even still remember the day that I came running to Nick's office because he sent out an email that our presentation was moved, and I ran down the hallway out of breath. I'm like, we're not ready. We didn't prepare. So, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's very interesting. Just those little relationships, even from a university perspective, getting to know your profs, talking to them. And again, with as Kevin was saying, with the smartest person in the room, it is daunting to be with a lot of professionals who have a lot more experience than you, but most of the time in my experience, have always run into everyone being extremely helpful, super knowledgeable, and wanting to share that information, that they're always looking to help newcomers and young people in the industry. So just being a sponge and asking those questions and not being afraid to not know the answers, always be constantly learning. So I know that was probably a million things, but it all kind of comes together, and that's definitely, I think, what's made my success as to where I am from those steps.
Hey, Nick, can I just jump back in here for one quick
Please, yeah, because this is a discussion. Please, Anna.
I want to take a second and deliberately recognize Alex's participation on this panel. It is so wonderful to see someone, new, Alex, you're new in your career, and to be able and willing to participate on this panel. Please don't underestimate how important that is, because I really don't believe that, most new people in career would feel comfortable to participate on a panel with a bunch of old farts like us. So I want to call that out, because I think that says something about you that I would not want you to lose as your career goes on. I also think it is inspiring for those of you who are in your career, that you have ways to show up, you have things to add, you have things to value to share. You don't have to be 20 years in your career to sit on a panel and do something. And even if you're, a little bit scared and I don't know what I'm going to add, we're all scared, right? Just don't let that stop you. And Alex, I really think that your participation in something like this is really worth commending. And I couldn't let it go without calling you out to give you, give you some earned praise from my perspective.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. I appreciate that for sure. Yeah, because that's exactly when Nick gave me that LinkedIn message. I was like, oh my gosh, I just graduated in May. This is, my first full-time permanent job. And I was like, what the heck am I going to offer any of these students sitting there? Because I, a couple months ago, was in the exact same position. But I'm hoping that I can, bring that perspective of, hearing from Anna and Kevin and people who are very far along in their careers. It seems daunting. It's like, how am I going to get there? But there are the little steps. And so I'm hoping I can give a little bit of that perspective, that it's not as daunting as it seems. And yeah, but thank you so much, Anna. I do really appreciate that.
And I'm not that far along. Like, let's be honest. Like, I'm not that.
Yeah, so I was going to, I object to being called an old fart. So there's a little bit of tension on the panel now. I just want to say that.
Pandemonium now. It's chaos.
Just not awkward. Stop the recording right now.
That's right. I think this speaks to, and Anna, you stole my thunder, but I love this because I was going to equally praise Alex on this. I think that speaks to, Alex, your openness to new experiences and to learning. And this is a perfect segue. We have 7 minutes to round up our discussion here this afternoon, and time has gotten away from us, but this is really good. I love the dialogue here. The last question is for students that are sitting in the virtual audience here. They are at different points in their academic career. Some are first-year students that are still feeling out, what major am I going to take? Others are nearing the end. They've done a couple of co-ops, perhaps. They've worked part-time throughout school, summer, full-time. So there's a real cross-section of students here. And I didn't want to let this opportunity pass us by without each panelist, if it's possible, a piece of advice that you would give to our students who want to carve out a career for themselves in this very broad, very exciting field of HR in management. And I'm going to have April, if that's okay, putting you on the spot, to give that first piece of advice.
Thank you so much, Nick. What a great question. I'll tell you what I see. I spent many years doing career transition or career management courses in the MBA programs at SMU, and I'm a SMU grad. And so one of the things that I noticed from a lot of the students that I would talk to was how students would allow themselves to not own what it takes to go through a master's level program or any level of university program, and to not leverage that it's undervalued even in your own mind. Because when I think about, there's two parts of a degree. There's, the information, the learning, the technical, there's that. And then there's a signal to everybody else around what it takes to able to complete such a goal. And I would hate for have people that are just coming out of school or new in their careers even, like Alex, to really underestimate the value of that or not even consider it value. And so it's easy to walk into a room with people that are, maybe longer in the tooth, maybe have more experience, and allow them to, or have them tell you, well, you're the new kid. Well, here's the thing about the new kid. And this is my theory on choosing a doctor. I always go for the young doctors because they've got the latest in new techniques and the latest in their education and the latest in approaches to healthcare and medicine. And I would say that there's something there to leverage for you as students, as people just going into the workforce, that you may have the shiniest and the newest and greatest over maybe what I know and what I've been practicing. So there's something called reverse mentoring, where you can actually mentor, a young person can mentor someone who is way more experienced, because you may have something to bring to that conversation that that person didn't have access to. So the theme is, do not underestimate your accomplishments coming out of school.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, April, for that. Just for the sake of time, just moving to Nick, a piece of advice that you would give to our students who want to pursue, make a name for themselves in this very broad field.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So I've seen so many promising careers just unfortunately destroyed due to some poor behaviors. So again, this is something that I feel it seems unfair, but it's the reality of it. HR professionals are held to a really, really high standard on their behaviors. The finance guy can get away with having too many drinks, but oh my goodness, if HR does it, the whole company is going to know. We're privileged with so much private information. If one little gossip story and your credibility is shot, no one trusts you, and trust is oh my God, it's so much more important in an HR professional. And if you lose that credibility, that trust early in your career, it's going to take a long time to rebuild it, and you probably have to start fresh somewhere else. So I think the biggest thing that I'd want to tell someone starting out in HR is it's not fair, but you are put on a pedestal behaviorally. And that's the world you have to live in. And if you want to be successful, then you have to maintain that. And that will give you the trust and credibility you need to have to be successful in the HR profession. I should also add, I don't know, this seems like, Nick, a great time to also say it would benefit you by having the HR designation, the nationally recognized designation, which, I'll let the secret out, Nick, if you're okay with that.
You go right ahead.
Yeah, so MSVU, the Strategic HR Management Program, has been reviewed and is successful in matching our core competency framework. So the great news is we just need to get some signatures in place, but once those signatures are in place, if you graduate with a 70% in the Strategic HR Management Program at MSVU, then congratulations, you don't need the stress and anxiety of writing another exam. You can bypass our national knowledge exam, and you're only one step away from having the designation. So all you'll have to do after you graduate is just satisfy our experience requirement, and then you've got the designation. And that will certainly help on your resume going forward.
I love this. Shameless plug, and I'm loving it. So we've had inspirational, we've had practical, we've had pragmatic. Let us see what is in store. Kevin, what do you have for us? What nugget of advice would you have for students?
Well, I think one thing you have to understand is to be in management, you need to have a broad breadth of knowledge across all the functional areas in an organization. So get a good grounding, again, across all of those functional areas, and be well-rounded, because you need to understand how your area that you're working in interacts with the other areas in the organization in order to achieve the strategy. Take advantage of your educational opportunities. As April said, it's a great opportunity to build your personal and interpersonal skills. And my last thing is a small anecdote. I teach performance management in the MBA program at St. Mary's, and it's one of the key areas I teach it to is the MBA CPA program, or it used to be the CMA program. And so these are all accountants, and they're going to go off in the finance world. And so I go, so how many of you guys want a career in HR? And like one hand goes up or two hands. They're like, dude, we're in finance. I said, how many of you want to go into management? Everybody goes, oh yeah, we all want to go into management. I said, okay, welcome to HR. What do you think you do as managers? You manage people, and everything gets done through people. So keep that in mind.
Kevin, I love that story. Thank you for that. Management is leading people, managing people. Thank you for that. Alex, real quick, parting words of wisdom to our students.
Don't know if I'd go as far as words of wisdom, but getting there. Really, yeah, just the main thing I think is just being open to opportunities and experiences, especially coming right out of university. You've done all the work, the grueling years of studying, and it's hard when, you know, the end goal of that career that you want, it seems so far away, but, you know, you need to have those stepping stones to get there. So just being able to, yeah, you're not going to get your dream corporate, I guess, director position right out of university. You're going to have to work at a lot of, you know, different things that you thought you might not. But it's, again, that's what it is. And that's what makes you so well-rounded, is having those different experiences in different industries. So yeah, just definitely don't cross anything off just because you're like, well, it's not really HR. Well, you know, it still gives you that learning and that knowledge just in business generically, that will really help your career. So that's definitely what I would recommend the most, is just being open to those opportunities and experiences, and, you know, give yourself a little credit. Yeah, you're not going to get your dream, you know, management job right out of university. Well, maybe you are. I can't speak for myself for that one. But again, it's those stepping stones that are going to get you knowing the right people and getting the right experience to be able to get that one day.
And I love that response, Alex, because you're not A, far removed, but B, you're the embodiment of that. You're open to experience, and you were as a student, and you are now as a practitioner. So that's awesome. Anna, you have the last word. Parting words of wisdom, some advice to our students. Uh-oh, she's celebrating.
Right. You ready? I have so many things. So one thing that I'm really struck by is first of all, everything that everybody else said. Yes, that, and relationships and networks really matter. So if I think about my career, I have a connection story to everybody on this panel and Nick, right? And so it's funny how it works. And the people that you met in 2005, or that you met in 2016, you think you're never going to see them again. It's really, really funny how those things can come back to either help you or haunt you. So pay attention. If you have a relationship that you don't think matters, you know, that's a risky way to go into managing your career. Always make sure that you're trying to leave a good track record behind you, good experience, because, you know, I have seen people think that their relationship wasn't going to matter, and then it comes back to haunt them in ways that they didn't think. So that really matters. I think, you know, don't worry so much about the job. Like, say yes to the job, the next job you get, because everything is building towards something else, but don't look past it, right? Alex isn't going to be in the job that she has forever, but she's going to take as much as she can from that, and that will help her through her career. The part of the reason why I think that's really, really important is because when it comes to dealing with people, it's as much art as science. There are so many things about it that you cannot learn through a book. You know, I still remember, I don't know if you remember this, Nick, and I don't know if everyone knows, I met Nick when I taught him. He was in my class, and we were having a conversation about performance management, and everyone was behind their laptop, and it was hard for me to know if people were paying attention. And I remember we came to the topic of what to do if someone cries in front of you at work, and all of a sudden all the laptops went down, and they were like, tell me, what do I do if people start crying? You can't read that in a book and then think that that's going to easily translate to an experience where someone is sitting in front of you crying, right? So it's because it's art and science, you've got to get a job and get experience and get that seat time, so that when those things come up, you at least know how to approach it. Don't underestimate what you're doing now, the relationships that you're building in the next jobs that you have. I promise you, if you're thoughtful and strategic about it, those things will set you up for whatever job you think you might want 10, 15, 20 years from now.
On that note, wow, Anna, thank you. And I'll never forget in that class where you taught students, they're the most ethical way, the most human way to fire somebody or let somebody go. And thankfully, I have not had to have that experience, but that is a lasting memory that I have, that hopefully at some point, if that would happen to me, I would be able to take that from you because of that network and putting myself out there and ask those questions. So valuable. On that note, wow, what a career week panel. Our panel's done a phenomenal job. This is not a random combination of people, but this is a strategic cross-section of highly successful individuals that are connected to our school. So thank you so much to each one, Anna, April, Nick, Kevin, and Alex. Thank you for bringing honesty, bringing your whole self to this, and giving our students all kinds of neat little tidbits and nuggets and insights to the career and to the profession. So thank you. On behalf of the Department of Business and Tourism here at Mount St. Vincent University, I want to extend a formal thank you to our panelists once more, and also to all of our students that are online. For those who are interested, this recording will be made available on our department YouTube channel within the next several days, so please hang tight. And on that note, I wish everybody a wonderful afternoon. Please be safe, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nick, you did a great job.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Nick,
everybody. Bye-bye.
enjoyed being here.
Thank you.